Welcome to Empower Humans.
Welcome again to the Empower Humans podcast. This is episode 62, my friends. I'm so excited to bring you this interview with the one and only Ray LUZIER. KORN has a new album coming out right now, September 13th, Friday the 13th, along with KXM, which is another band he's in, both coming out on Friday the 13th. The Nothing is the name of the album from KORN. Circle of Dolls is the album from KXM. And so excited to bring this interview because we covered so much, everything from the album, which, by the way, Ray tells us is the best KORN experience to date. And he's an insider, so let's take his word for it. There's so much buzz surrounding this album, both these albums. And so I hope everyone's going to go out, buy the albums, buy them on iTunes, do whatever you got to do, support these bands. They put in a ton of work. We talked about that in our conversation here. We talked a lot about KORN's history and his background, Ray's background in particular, some musical influences, touring. A lot of people asked, and we had some fan questions, and we actually covered quite a few. Some of you we named by name, so thank you for those questions. My apologies for any mispronunciations of names or also any questions we didn't get to. I've made note and highlighted some of those questions for next time. So listen for all that stuff and some great answers too. A lot of people asked about the tour, whether it be in Europe or Oregon and Washington and Brazil and all over the world. KORN has fans everywhere, and it's just incredible. So I hope you're all excited for this. I want to remind you, as always, our audience, you are absolutely priceless. The riches are found in you, my friends. It's not all the other stuff around us. Don't let anyone convince you anything other than that. You are absolutely priceless and beautiful and amazing. And also, the other thing, you are never alone. So don't ever think otherwise. Reach out. Reach out to me at Empower101 on Instagram and Twitter, empowerhumans.com, info@empowerhumans.com. Send me a direct message there on our contact page. Friends, neighbors, don't ever feel alone. I just want you to remember that. And also remind you, shifting gears here, we've got some Empower Humans podcast merch for free that we're going to be offering you as well. So watch for that through the podcast page, empowerhumans.com/podcast. The only thing you're going to have to cover is some basic shipping. And also we're going to give you an opportunity to donate to some worthy causes out there as part of the transaction. If you get some merch, not an obligation, but something that I think could be a benefit for kind of a win-win for all involved. So watch for that as well. Go to the empowerhumans.com/podcast page. And just excited to bring you this interview. Some of you asked, by the way, about sending drawings for KORN or for Ray. Send those to me. DM them at Empower101, and I'll do my best to get them in front of Ray and the others if necessary. Anything else, by the way, I also want to point out at B as in boy, page 3K has a movement going for his dad, I believe. Hashtag a new heart for Brian. This all came about as part of our push to get questions and comments for KORN. And so I want to kind of put a plug for that. Go donate for that cause as well. Hashtag a new heart for Brian. And maybe some of you can help with that as well. So without further ado, here is our interview with the one and only incredibly talented, most professional guy in music, Ray LUZIER of both KORN and KXM. Here we are again with the one and only Ray LUZIER of KORN, and we've got two albums coming out this week, both on Friday the 13th of September. Circle of Dolls for KXM and The Nothing with KORN. Hey, Ray, how you doing?
I'm awesome. That's it's an unlucky day, but it's very lucky for my two bands.
Lucky for all the fans. I mean, there's so much buzz right now surrounding both these releases and everything KORN's doing. It just seems like KORN's just getting more and more popular as the days, months, weeks, years go by. And
it's we're really lucky, and I feel blessed to be. I mean, the band's been around 25 years now. October starts my 13th year, and it's insane how, I mean, a lot of bands that's been around this long usually are playing clubs or they're riding out on the couple of hits they had back in the day.
Yeah.
The cool thing about KORN is we stay current. We're always writing new music. We're trying to, I mean, we put a dubstep record out in 2012. I mean, we're not afraid to take chances, and you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
This past tour really proved where we're at. I mean, that we went out with Alice in Chains, and everything's sold out, if not close to selling out, every single shed and arena, and it was just a great feeling,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I had the privilege of seeing you guys recently in Albuquerque, my hometown, And great experience all around. Day after my birthday, so even better. And
Nice.
now, and as I watch you guys perform, and you in particular, I live in Vegas now, and watching your drumming almost kind of feels like a Cirque du Soleil show. And which I mean as the utmost compliment, because people are often mesmerized just watching you play because it's acrobatic, sticks flying, spinning, one-handed on song. We talked about this, Got the Life and stuff. How important is it, Ray, to have fun both individually and as a band, and maybe change it up every show? How important is all that?
I've always been, it's a pet peeve of mine to go to a rock show or something that's kind of heavily involved, and I see a drummer with that waiting for the bus look on his face.
Yeah.
Nothing drives me more nuts. And granted, I'm not saying that you should be a ham back there, but I learned from David Lee Roth years ago that he'd always tell me, "LUZIER, people are paying good money to see you too.
Yeah.
Don't be boring back there." So I was like, that was a big deal to me, and I took that. I learned a lot of things about show business off of David Lee Roth, and he's one of the kings of it of all time. So, and let alone, I grew up in a giant marching band kind of era. I was in marching for quite some time, where you had to spin sticks in unison in time, and I never really wanted to be a show off or anything. I just wanted to bring some of that visual aspect to the stage and look like I 100% play like how I'm feeling. I'm feeling that aggression and I'm feeling that rage because the music calls for it. There's not exactly love ballads in Korn. So.
Yeah, not generally, but valuable, priceless music nonetheless. And no better guy to learn from David Lee Roth and these others that you've associated with over the years. Now tell me, when we talk about this time with David Lee Roth, for example, and I remember you told me some time ago, now for those who don't know, David Lee Roth was a Van Halen and just legend in music.
Zippity bop.
Yeah. And I love the guy. Didn't you run into Alex Van Halen in LA one time during your tenure with Dave, since you brought up Dave?
I did. The Van Halen brothers are very seclusive. They're very they don't, they're just never out. They never play on other people's records except with that little song called Beat It that Michael Jackson did. But
yeah, little song.
They're not much out there. So I was living in Encino, California at the time, in the Valley, and I'm at this taco stand where I used to love their fish tacos, and I went. Lo and behold, Alex Van Halen was there with his then wife, and I just finished the song "Slam Dunk," the very first single off the David Lee Roth record, DLR Band.
Yeah. And
I was just I could never met the guy. I just wanted to. I'm like, I'm not going to bother him because sometimes I get bummed when people bug me when I'm eating. But I couldn't resist because it was just me and him and his girl. And I was like, you know what? I go, "Hey, Al, this is a funny story, but I'm working with your old singer right now, and I'm in his band." And he looked back at me like, "Oh, really?" and it was just a really surreal moment. And I said, "Yeah, I'm on this song, and I was very inspired by you because it's double bass shuffle, and Hopper Teacher was one of my biggest favorite songs to play, and and it's just a pleasure to meet you." And he was very nice and said, "Hey, good luck. And you tell Diamond I said hi." And I'm like, "Yeah, I absolutely will." And that was a good moment.
You were instrumental in bringing them all back together. So thank you for that.
Subliminally. Yeah, where's my check?
Yeah, I'll put in a good word for you. You said before that Kiss wasn't that your favorite band growing up, aside from Van Halen, of course?
Yeah, and Korn can't stand Kiss. It's pretty funny because they just like, "LUZIER, how'd you possibly listen to that stuff?" And I'm like, "Hey, when you're on a 118-acre farm in the middle of nowhere, it's no one really tells you what to listen to. It's still my sister's, Ozzy, Kiss, Ted Nugent, Black Sabbath, whatever records I could get my hands on." Yeah. And Kiss was on the cover of everything in the late 70s like that. So I just bought Kiss records, and I became not only just liking their music, but they were just like cartoon characters to me. They weren't real. I mean, I would collect the comic books and put the puzzles together and buy the makeup. And I was pretty obsessed for a very long time. And about 6 months ago, I took my kids to see Kiss because I wanted them to see the last tour, that they're doing. And it was really special to me that now I'm kind of friends with those guys, and they were very nice and had us backstage, and I got, Paul Stanley's holding my youngest, and it's pretty surreal,
That's awesome. Now, and how does that influence with bands like Kiss contribute to what we all see and enjoy from you now?
Oh, it's all in the blood, and it's all in the vocabulary I got when I was growing up. I just remember as a kid, you put on like Rush moving pictures and you put on AC/DC Back in Black, and you're like, why is AC/DC way easier to play than Rush? And you just, because you don't know as a kid that you're playing odd times or there's more drum fills or you're trying to take on more things, but it all contributes to what you are today. It's like I've been really lucky to be able to do nothing but play drums for a living my whole entire life. I only had one side job when I moved to LA, and it was like, I feel very lucky. I know a lot of very talented musicians working in coffee shops, and it's a crime to me because just because you're good in the music business doesn't mean you always get that break. So
yeah.
and it wasn't easy for me at all. I mean, I had many failed original bands. I had, as you know, I did a lot of sessions, and I taught at Musicians Institute for quite some time, and I did everything from playing on movie soundtracks to teaching drum lessons to Jake E. Lee, David Lee Roth, Arcade, Army of Anyone, anyone I could to just get in the business.
Yeah, and that's true. Showbiz, music, acting, whatever it is. There's a lot of talented folks. Not always space for everyone, but also, you put in the work. I mean, tell me about your work ethic.
Well, coming from the farm, people laugh, but it's really true. There's no one. The city people, I always joke with them because I'm like, man, I'd love to see some of my city friends that really grew up in, downtown Manhattan, just to throw them in the farm for 1 year to see how they survive. Because it's no joke, man. It's like, we wake up and you're baling a hayfield, before you even go to school, and there's no such thing as 9 to 5 and let's go watch this latest TV show. You're working until the sun goes down, and it's like that work ethic, when it's embedded in your brain like that since you were, born till you're 18, it kind of carries on to your natural life, So when I go after something, I go after it tenfold. There's no slouching, if I, up until the Korn gig, they told me to learn 6 songs. I learned 33 to 35.
Yes.
You just do that. It's just part of my blood, Don't get me wrong. I could be really lazy sometimes, but the general consensus of my being and where I've got today is definitely a lot of hard work, pounding the pavement, networking to a ton of people, and let alone practicing your balls off.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you point out an element of what you call laziness, which is just relaxation once in a while. I mean, it keeps you sane, obviously, but you do.
And now I got kids. I got a 4 and an 8-year-old, and they really keep me grounded. There's no such thing as Daddy's a rock star. It's like, that's great, Dad. You're just on a big rock tour. We're going to the park, and then after that, we're going to Chuck E. Cheese. And by the way, we're going to go to this obstacle course later. And it's nonstop.
Yeah. It's work hard, play hard. That's just the way it is. And
yep.
And I'm glad you brought up the thing about this. I was actually about to ask you that about the songs. You already mentioned it. You learned 33 songs. Now, how long did it take you to learn that? You must have known some already. In a nutshell, some of these songs.
I was a fan. When I was in a band called Army of Anyone with Richard from Filter and the DeLeo brothers from Stone Temple Pilots, Richard and I became buddies, and he goes, "Hey man, I'm going to go see Korn." I'm like, I've never seen them, and I've always liked their stuff and really dug the way, let's face it, when STP, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, all those bands came out in the 90s, Korn kind of carved up right through the middle of everyone and said, no, we're going to sound like this. We're not going to follow the Seattle sound or whatever's happening. And I always admired that about them. I never forget the first time I heard Blind, just hearing that riff and going, wow, this is just out of control,
Yeah, made you mosh.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It was really just a unique sound and reckless, and nothing was, Ross Robinson just made them play with angst and just, it was just crazy. 5 punks from Bakersfield that did great, But when I just totally lost my train of thought. I looked over to the right, and that's my ADD kicking in. Right?
Well, I mean, we're talking about you're talking about you went to see Korn, and this one of your bandmates from Army of Anyone.
look, a squirrel.
No.
Yeah. So anyway, Richard took me to the Korn show, and I was like just blown away. I couldn't believe I never saw him live, and why is this the first time I've gone? And then Army of Anyone and Korn had the same managers, and so towards the end of Army of Anyone, which I didn't want it to end, I really loved that band, and I wanted to
great band.
Thanks. I wanted to do records 2, 3, and 4, and unfortunately, I knew Weiland was going to get back in STP eventually. I just didn't know that quick, we came out around that time, Velvet Revolver and all these, what they call supergroup people were coming out. And, I really loved that band. And so every time I'd go over our management in Beverly Hills, Prospect Park, they were called, I'd say, hey, what's up with Korn? I heard they had Terry Bozzio play on the record, and that David guy quit. And next thing you know, Brooks Waxman's played on the track, and Jonathan Davis, the singer, even played on a couple songs on Untitled. And then manager goes, well, check this out. They got Joey Jordis from Slipknot filling in for Family Values. I'm like, man, why don't they get a drummer? And here we are, almost 13 years later. It's like he called me up and said, man, you should go up and play with Korn. Joey's last gig's in Seattle coming up. You should go up there and play a couple tunes with the band. And I'm like, man, okay. That's like, you don't join Korn. Those are those guys, and no one can do what they do. And he's like, they really love your Army of Anyone record. Why don't you give it a try? So that's what I did.
Yeah, sounds like you did, because here we are. And I by the way, there's video of all this on YouTube. Not maybe the whole thing, but there's clips and so on of you auditioning. Yeah. And them asking you to come to Europe and all that stuff. So it's an awesome, surreal moment. And speaking of bands evolving, since Head came back into the band, how has the dynamic changed from the time he was away from Korn?
Yeah, it's funny because when he got in, I was in the band. He was out almost as long as I was in the band, so it was kind of a crazy twist.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to hear what it would sound like with the four original and me, ever since I joined the band. Yeah. And I love James Schaefer's an amazing workhorse in the studio, and he really puts in the effort and time. And Fieldy, when we're all in there, when it was just us four, it was a totally different work ethic, because, there was always this element that you could tell James was like, man, not that he wasn't capable, because he's definitely capable. He has wrote some great music, and I love that See You on the Other Side record. And that's without Brian.
Yeah.
But when Jonathan and everyone, we confronted him with that one show to get up and jam blind with us, the Carolina Rebellion show. It's on YouTube. You can check it out.
Yep.
The crowd went absolutely mental, and when I had the best seat in the house up on the kit, on the riser.
Yeah.
And I looked down and I just saw them rocking out, and the smiles and the vibe, and I was just like, oh, this has to happen, It just, and it wasn't right away, we didn't want to rush anything. James told him, he says, hey man, the door's open if you ever feel like coming back. And he says, yeah, not right now, but that felt really good, And then lo and behold, a few months went by, they spoke again, and he says, let's get together and write some songs, because maybe that magic's gone. You never know. Sometimes just because you wrote giant hit records and you sold 44 million records doesn't mean you can still do it. Some people move on mentally, they not in the right zone.
Yeah.
So but when he got in the studio, just instantly cracked jokes, and me and him are so sarcastic with each other and just ripping on each other like high school kids,
Yeah.
And it just, what a vibe and chemistry. And then I saw the way Monkey and Head work off of each other, and that blew me away. The smallest minute little detailed thing, with Head will play something, and Monkey will answer, or vice versa. And, oh, hey, you play this part, I'll play this part. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is what this band's missing. So, obviously, I'm proud of Korn 3, and as reckless as that record was to make, there's some really cool stuff on there that I love. But the last, from Paradigm Shift to Serenity of Suffering to now the Nothing coming out, which is my favorite record that we've ever done. It's everyone's in a totally different zone right now. This is the best I've ever heard Jonathan sound. Monkey and Head's parts are just insane. Fieldy's playing like he's never played before. I feel like I've reached a new plateau with the band, and it's just it's a great time. That's
exciting as heck. And the songs we've heard so far from the album, passionate, just intense, cohesive. The band sounds as good or better than ever. And is there any sort of theme message with this album as well? We know the title is The Nothing. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, obviously everyone knows Jonathan went through a really traumatic, we all did, traumatic experience last year with the loss of his wife. And it was right in the middle of a solo tour that I was playing on. And everyone check out his record, Black Labyrinth. It's really great.
Great record.
We went out to support that, and I really thought that, okay, wow, this is not good. Like, who knows when he's going to get back in the headspace of wanting to tour and record again. And he called us up and said, if I don't go out and play, I'm going to lose my mind, because that's my therapy, he said, and that is for a lot of people. That's why a lot of people come to our shows. They want to get away from their 9 to 5s, and they want to release and rock out and hear loud music and cut loose, So that was really huge of him to keep playing and keep touring. And then when he got in the studio, of course, a lot of this just had to come out. So it's definitely a darker record, and but if you listen to that thing from front to bottom, I had to stop listening to it because it's so mentally exhausting in a great way. It's like it just takes you on this journey, and it's like by the last note of his breath that you hear on the record, just like, okay, that was heavy. It's like, and I think everyone's going to feel that. There's no faking the emotion that's on this record. We've trapped it for sure.
Yeah. No, that sounds incredible. And again, so much buzz and excitement. The songs you've already released are just incredible. By the way, I got a bunch of fan questions, and I want to get to some of these. Literally, I got dozens and dozens and dozens. And I like that dynamic from what we did last time, where it was just chatting drums and good interview. All in all, go back, listen to, I think it's episode 36, I think. But I wanted to get some fan involvement here, and shout out to these groups on Facebook, Children of the Corn and Cornfield, and on Instagram, galore across the board. Just everybody just excited.
I'll tell you what, we have such great people make up these sites and these Instagrams, and they're such great people, and they really take time out of their days to do posts and post news on us. And they're really, shout out to everyone out there for being a part of us and keeping us alive, because it's because of you guys we are,
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Yeah. Great fans. And I've gotten to know even more Korn fans over the years. I've been a fan myself since the beginning, and some of the greatest people around. We may have tattoos, any number of things, and excellent people across the board.
Don't stereotype, because you never know who. Sometimes the tattoo dreaded guy next to you is way more wholesome than the guy in the suit.
I know. That's our message. Let's pass that around, everybody. The Korn fans already know all this. Plus, band members have tons of tattoos, exception of you.
I don't. I have none yet. I'll go off the deep end in a few years and just get face tattoos or something. I don't know.
Yeah, do it. And let's get into some of these. And we talk about the tour, the recording. One question I had as a fan, and this is just a silly question, but when you're in the studio, you're not throwing sticks around and all that, are you? Or are you?
I juggle. I do this whole juggling act to make sure it gets on capture on tape. No, I'm very focused, obviously, in the studio, but I want to also, like, especially on the Nothing, I played all those drum takes from start to finish. A lot of drummers do this thing and guitar players, vocalists, where they punch every couple bars. So they'll sing a little bit, or they'll play drums for, say, the verse, and then they'll go get the next verse, and then they'll go back and do the choruses. Nick Raskulinix, our producer, which I love, he's one of my favorites of all time, had me play the songs. He's like, nope, you're on stage right now. How would this sound? And I was like, wow, that's a totally different approach than, okay, the red light's on, everyone get uptight and get nervous, and it wasn't like that. So I was literally rocking out in the studio this time, and it felt so good, especially on the song Cold and You'll Never Find Me, the first two singles. It just, those songs, I'm literally in there playing, having fun, and if I messed something up, I'd go back and fix a blatant mistake. But for the most part, he wanted that vibe on there, Monkey and Head track the guitars together head to head, just like they did on Serenity of Suffering. And there's a special element about that, because the one guitar player doesn't want to mess up, because the other one's going to have to do it over, and vice versa. So that was really cool, that vibe on here.
Yeah. So all depending, leaning on each other. And I think you can feel all the things you're describing on these songs. And Sean Lawton asked from a Facebook group, Children of the Corn, he said, do you use click tracks? And of course, no judgment. We're just curious was kind of what he's asking. Do you use click tracks in studio?
We did. The last record we didn't use click tracks was Korn 3. Ross Robinson wanted that vibe of the first two Korn records, where we just, we're all humans. Let's not let any machine get in the way. And I respect that to an extent. And then sometimes you want that click track to be your guide. Like, I don't really lock in with the click as much as some drummers do. I just use it as a reference. Like, okay, I don't want to speed this part up or slow this down because the machine's telling me here's the time. So for the non-musicians out there that don't know what a click track is, it's basically a machine that you hear a side stick, and the side stick is programmed to a certain beats per minute. So it lets you know where exactly the time is, and you can, as a professional musician, as I think I am, you try to play around that. So I might be able to hold a verse back and rush the chorus a little bit, even though the click is in the same spot. It's a feeling you can give the song, you know. So yeah, on the last 3 records we've used click. Yep.
Yeah, and okay, that's good to know, and I'm glad you explained what that all means, because again, us musicians, I guess, take for granted some of the terminology here, and but yes, we human musicians sometimes might speed up, or so there's emotion in a song and all these things, and so these click tracks help keep things locked in.
Well, here's the thing, like, the records are permanent. I mean, we're all gone. These records outlive us, so that's what kind of sticks in my head. Like, if that moment froze in time that you're performing, that's it. Like, once it's down, and in my opinion, these days, too much is fixed up. Like, these drummers and guitar players and everyone are playing sloppy, and they don't really care because they know they're going to get fixed up in the machine. And I kind of hate that, because, you know, people like myself have worked very hard to get to a certain level where here's what we sound like. And then when you get, you know, there's nothing worse than hearing a band's record and going to see them live and going, oh, they don't sound nothing like the record. They're not that good, you know?
Yeah.
So and I'm not saying we don't fix anything, because we do. It's permanent, but we don't fix as much, I would say. You know what I mean?
No, but it shines through on the live show. I mean, you guys, of the many bands I've been a fan of and seen live, you guys are among the very top in terms of both studio recording and live performance, and just getting the audience involved, and the lighting, and of course the theatrics of your drum. Everything is just locked down, and your sound guy, everything just sounds amazing. So it's
cool. Thanks.
And now the guy named Norbert here on Facebook also asked, do you have a favorite song on the Nothing?
I do, and it's funny because I'm kind of married to all of them right now, because they're such, like, it's like we're giving birth to this record on Friday, you know, which was the 13th. There's a song called Harder on there that almost didn't make it, and sometimes musically, like, we had so many ideas, probably 25, 26 songs we tracked, and when you shave that down to 13, it's painful, because you get attached to these things. They become your children. And I remember in the studio going, what do you mean this one's not going to make it? You can't be serious. And then but then when you hear the one you didn't think was going to make it, you're like, oh wow, it's way cooler than I thought it was. Well, Harder is one of those tunes where it was resonating with all of us. John was going different directions with it, and he's like, you know what, I don't know if this one's going to cut it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he just knocked that freaking thing out of the park. Like, it's like, hang on, it's just got all the elements of old Korn, but with today's production and today's playing, how we play it. And that's one of my favorites. I love a song called Idiosyncrasy. John called us up when me, Head, Fieldy, and Monk were writing one day, and he says, like, think Pantera, think something like really just heavy and aggressive, and I love the way that song turned out. It's really that's another one of my favorites. The new single, Can You Hear Me? That's another. I just love the melody of that. It just came out so great, and John knocked it out of the park again. You know.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear some of these. And you talk about the writing of the songs. Angelique Almanza asked, "Did you write any of the songs? I mean, it's obviously a collective effort as a band, and then
it's a group effort. I mean, it has been the last several records. We all get in a room. It's a lot of times it's me, Head, and Monkey, and then Fieldy comes in. This time it was all 5 of us. I mean, John would come to the studio in LA. We did some of it in Nashville. Head and I live in Nashville. The other 3 in LA. So we'd go back and forth to respective studios, and it was definitely a collaborative thing on this record, which is, I think you can hear that vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. And she also was asking, let's see, how the heck did you become so amazing at your profession? We already talked about your work ethic and experience.
I thank her for that, and that's nice. It's a nice compliment. But in my head, I have light years to go. It's kind of weird. I'm my worst critic. I'm on probably, I don't know how many, over 100 records now, and I could honestly say I can only pop about 10 of them in and turn them up and go, yes, this is awesome. Because I always listen to records and I'm like, oh man, I could have did that better. Oh, I should have put that fill here. This group could have been this. I don't know what it is, and it's weird, and that's a weird thing. I know a lot of musicians that are just like, listen how amazing I sound on this, and I'm like, how do you say that?
Yeah.
I've just never been that guy at all. I'm always thinking I can do better. I'm always pushing myself to and I think that's the beauty about any instrument. You can always be better on it and learn more, put more vocabulary in your head.
Yeah, and I think that's true across the board, whether it's in music, business, various other endeavors in life. People who succeed, excel at these things, or have that kind of mindset that you're just light years away all the time. It doesn't mean you don't have some level of satisfaction as you hit milestones along the way and you record a new album, but never quite. And we talked about that before too, because I was like, well, hey, don't you just like not have to practice anymore? And you said, no, absolutely. I've got to absolutely practice all the time. So
yeah, absolutely, man.
Good questions we're getting here. And somebody asked Marcos Mello, and again, my apologies if I mispronounce anybody's name here. He asked, are you going to release any special edition, like Japan edition, or any bonus tracks kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not. Let's just say we have a lot of songs recorded, and some of them I can't believe aren't on this record. It's crazy to me. But I heard Jonathan say this in another interview, so I think I can mention it. But we actually did a couple more covers. Someday I think we're going to release a Korn covers record, because we have so much fun doing songs that we really love. That we're up to probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 tunes now we've tracked, and people are going to be blown away when they see what we've covered. It's not the typical like, oh, they're a hard rock metal band, they're going to track this or re-record. There's some wacky things that got tracked, and I can't wait for people to hear this. So I'm hoping in the next few years that these are going to come out. But yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
A little Korn Kiss cover record.
There you go.
I think that's what we're looking for. I'm sure all of it will be priceless material. A gal named Amy Belinda C. Asked, she says loyal fans wouldn't listen to the leaked album. She wants to know how the band feels about albums leaking in this particular album.
It's weird. There's a lot of it's crazy to me. There's sites out there that's like leak of the week, leak of the month. It's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like it's just the world we live in, and it's unfortunate. I think the quality fans that really support the band and love the band and have been there with us and been with Korn since the beginning, and me since I've got the gig, will purchase it. I know a couple of my friends that have pre-ordered 5 copies, and they give them out to their friends, or they pre-ordered one for their cousin Larry in Iowa. And you know what I mean? Those are the loyal diehard fans that won't sit there and spread the leak around. Of course, you're going to have, in a world we live in with Apple Music, the Spotify's, and Amazon Music, and all these. There's so many sites now that provide people with quote free music for a small fee a month. A lot of these people don't think it's a big deal. I'm old school because we're all in our later 40s. We're not 22 anymore. So in our heads, it's like, how dare you? We worked our balls off for this, buy it. But I understand too that these kids, a lot of the younger generation, don't really think they're doing anything wrong. So I'm not going to sit here and yell at people, but I think it's very wrong to put it on a site and announce that, hey, I got the leak. That's just, man,
Yeah.
It's harsh.
And this has all been going on a long time. I mean, we look back to Lars and Metallica. He went before Congress and this whole Napster, that whole deal. And some people were mad at Lars. Hey, we're fans and we just want to hear. Some of them bought the albums. I bought all those albums and stuff.
Here's the thing. I first learned this when I was in Army of Anyone, and I'll never forget. I was standing outside in I forget what town it was, but I'm standing out there in the rain. I'm always the last guy signing everything. I'm always that guy that's just, I feel bad. If someone's going to wait out there for my autograph, I'm not going to blow them off, And so
Great.
I go outside, and this dude's in an umbrella. He's got an Army of Anyone shirt on. He's got one of my sticks. He's got the T-shirt on, the whole. And then he goes, hey, man, can you sign this? And I'm like, sure. And I looked over, and it was a CDR, which is a blank CD. And it had Army of Anyone written in a Sharpie. And I'm like, hey, you want me to sign this? But you ripped it. And he's like, well, yeah, but I'm here. I'm at your show, and I bought a T-shirt, and I'm going to go to another show.
Yeah.
I go, yeah, but our record's $9.99. It's $10, man. We worked 4.5 months on it. You could, and I started getting in his face about it, because this is the first time I've ever discovered leaking and ripping and all. And Robert, the bass player, come on, he goes, hey man, take it easy. And I'm like, well, I just don't understand. Like what? And he's looking at me like, hey, dude, you're an idiot. So, but to me, I just didn't think $10 was too much to ask for all the work we put into the record, but there you go.
Well, that's an interesting perspective, and it's good for everyone to hear that too. But yes, for those who aren't professionally recording and touring with any sort of musician, band, whatever it might be, I think it's worth getting into everyone's head, so to speak, on the music side to realize the work that goes into it.
I mean, even the KXM record that's coming out, Circle of Dolls, this Rat Pack Records, they're so passionate about what they do. And sure, it's a smaller label. It's not as, it's not going to sell as many as Korn does, but they're so cool about being old school. They're releasing it on vinyl and cassette. So, I mean, that's like pushing it, because I have many records and I love playing, vinyl, but I asked the guy, I says, how many cassette orders have you got? He goes, you'd be surprised how many hundreds of cassette orders we got. And I was like, because I don't even have a cassette player anymore, so good on him,
Yeah, that's good. And as far as us talking here in these fan questions, we're going to jump around a little bit. There's going to be shifting gears because people have different kinds of questions. There's a gentleman named Robert Sear. Again, my apologies if I mispronounced that. But he's asking, and he says he's a drummer too. What is your favorite double bass technique? Is it floating, swivel, ankle, flat foot? And I think I know what you use. And also, what do you get more into playing, the older or the newer Korn songs? That's kind of a twofold question.
Yeah, I mean, without getting too drum geeky with this, I play in Doc Martens every show.
Yeah.
I have since the first David Lee Roth show. I used to I still do, look up to Terry Bozzio a lot, and he always plays in boots.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about my foot technique. I sit really high and weird. Not a lot of drummers sit as high and strange as I do, but I just feel like I have more control over the drums, and I have to have boots on. I did 2 Korn shows in tennis shoes because I left my boots at the hotel room, and they were 2 of my weakest gigs I've ever played. And I don't know if it's a mental thing or what, but so I'm always the balls of my feet and my heels always up, because Korn's, like I said, it's a pretty heavy, intense gig. I like to give it all I got. So I'm hitting full strokes, and I'm hitting, full with my leg as well. So it's about 3/4 of the way up, the balls of my feet. And there's not too much sliding going on in Korn. If I'm doing a more fusion-y kind of instrumental gig that's a little bit lighter hitting, I will swivel a little bit. I kick my heels out a little bit to get more faster doubles and things like that. But as far as Korn goes, it's balls to the walls the whole way.
Yeah. Great. And on that note, you talk about fusion-y and so on. Do you enjoy playing other styles of music? I mean, I know you as a very versatile musician, and some people may not realize, as far as jazz and fusion, other things. What else do you enjoy playing?
Yeah, I really do. I love. I had an instrumental trio band called the Hideous Sun Demons, and we used to do from jazz to Latin to fusion to everything, and we just had fun with it. I always tell people, open your mind and listen to other styles of music. Don't pinpoint. If you're a metalhead, go listen to a jazz record or go check out a symphony orchestra. There's so much amazing music out there. And, it's a big challenge of mine. When I was a teacher at Musicians Institute, it would kick my butt constantly, because I'd fill in for a basic jazz class or a Latin class, and just playing bossa novas and getting the feel, and there's so much to learn. I really got my ass handed to me when I went there and started teaching there. So,
yeah,
as you know.
Yeah. And that was, by the way, Kathy Russell asked that. And another person, Sean Powers, asked how you plan each song out. Do you play a song over and over until something feels and sounds good? Or do you kind of plan before you jump into the song? I mean, I know from band experience, a lot of times you just kind of rocking out and jamming and feeling it out.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yeah. What do you think?
I've been learning songs since I was 5 years old. I used to just play the records over and over and over again. So I'm really good at memorizing things. If people give me a chart and they give me a CD of the record, I almost always listen to it because I have a really good memory. I can recall a 13-minute long song that has many different changes. I don't know why that is. I think just because the muscle memory I have since I was a kid. But
yeah,
that's what I mostly do. It's a mental thing, mental preparation. There's a movie soundtrack I played on called Repo, the Genetic Opera, and it's it's like a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of movie, and a lot of the songs are straightforward, but there's a lot of kooky stuff going on in there, and I memorized everything on that. I didn't have to read a chart for one of those, and the director was laughing. He's like, "There's no way you could memorize this," and I'm like, "Just give me the CD," and he did, and I memorized it. So it's a mental thing for me. If it's stuff I need to figure out, orchestrally on the drums, then obviously I need to sit there and shed with it for a while. Like, we're getting ready to play Cold, the new KORN'S single, at the record release party on Friday, and I just went in my studio right before I got on the phone with you and was playing along with it, and I was like, wow, I haven't played it since we recorded it. And even my own stuff, I'm kind of like, okay, how'd I do this again? Did I use my right foot or left foot? And so just mental preparation like that, and so I can get the maximum power and efficiency out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Again, shifting gears here, and thanks for these answers. Guy named @EricLopez22 on Instagram asked, he says, "I know this would never happen, but would you consider doing a head-to-head battle with David Silveria?" kind of how Monkey and Head go back and forth on stage. I know it's rare for bands to have two drummers. I don't know
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that guy, but I have gone head-to-head with other drummers. There's a YouTube video of Marco Minimum. As everybody knows, he's a phenomenal drummer.
Mm-hmm.
We did the same festival one time, and they said, "Would you guys do something if we just faced your kits together?" And I was like, "What are we gonna do?" And Marco goes, "Hey, I know you play with David Lee Roth. I'm a huge Van Halen freak. Let's do Hopper Teacher from the beginning to the end." And I'm like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
With no guitars? He's like, "No guitars. Me and you will sing it and just play it." And I'll be damned, we did it. No rehearsals, start to finish. And I've got to say, we pretty much nailed it. You got to check it out. So just type in Ray LUZIER, Marco Minimum online, and you'll see that.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. And on the topic of touring, by the way, a whole bunch of people ask all kinds of different things. I could list names here, but a gal named Jenny Lang, what kind of tour are we looking at? And a bunch of people asking about Europe, Brazil, the UK in general, Washington and Oregon.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
Like I said, we had a blast on this Alice in Chains tour. I wish we could have covered the planet with this lineup. It was just such an amazing tour. No egos, attitudes. Everyone came to work with smiles on their faces every day. The crew just knocked it out of the park every day. And the fans, when they left there, just smile. You went to the Albuquerque show,
Absolutely.
I wish we could have taken this all over the world, and it could happen, again with Alice in Chains. But I know we're planning some big things in 2020. Because, like I said, this record's just going to be coming out, and we have a lot of territories to cover. The cool thing about KORN is, a lot of bands just go to Europe and Japan and a couple places in Canada. When KORN says world tour, the first tour I did with them in 2008, we did 36 countries in 4.5 months. So not states, countries.
Yeah. That's
I mean, not many bands go to South Africa and Dubai and all those places. So I'm hoping we really cover a lot of territory in 20 and 21.
Well, and I think that says a lot about KORN'S both work ethic and just the grand scope of fans globally that exist for this band, and so that's exciting. And so some of those answers will come. Everyone's got to stay tuned and watch the KORN social media feeds and website and so on. And these answers will come on touring. The gal named, again, forgive my pronunciation, Rhiannon Straka on Instagram says, "What's the funniest thing that happened on this tour? Is there any kind of funny stories or anything you want to share? And also, how many sticks did you break?"
How many sticks did I break? Oh, wow. A lot of them have the souvenirs in their homes right now because I throw a lot out at night. And I'll drop my signature stick while you brought that up. I have a Ray LUZIER signature model on Vic Firth sticks, and the drummers that know that they're a very legendary stick company, and I finally got my own SIG stick with them. I'm very proud of it. You can get it at most guitar centers and some mom and pop shops. It's getting out there more slowly, but so I don't break many with them. A lot of drum companies to go through, a lot of drummers go through a lot of sticks, but Vic Firth makes them so good that they're just mostly warped by the time I get done playing.
Yeah. And
what was the first question of that?
Well, was anything funny on this tour? Any funny stories?
Yeah.
Anything?
We called it the Bus 2 because we had 3 buses out on this tour, and the Bus 2, we would laugh because I'd go over to John's bus, and I'm like, man, it's so quiet over here. And he's like, oh, it's quiet all the time. They just play video games in the back. And he had his kids out, and it was just so chill. You go to our bus with Head, Monkey, Fieldy, and we had one of the security guards on there, Conyo, and this guy named Q, who's in Stillwell and King's Bounty with Fieldy. He plays in several bands with him. Yeah. And Davey, our traveling keyboard DJ guy. I tell you what, it was nonstop laugh. I had to leave a couple times just because I couldn't. My mouth hurt so bad from laughing. It's just it's nonstop comedy, and nothing in particular. Just that chemistry of people were just wow till like 5 a.m. every night. Yeah,
kind of an energy. And on that note, we talk about Alice in Chains, legendary. I've been a huge fan playing my drums and so on with this and covering some of their songs with my band over the years. How was that touring with such a legendary band like Alice in Chains?
Huge. They've been, like you said, I remember the first time I saw them at the Palace in Hollywood. They opened for Extreme, that 80s band. And
wow.
And I'll tell you what, they were there for 3 white light bulbs, and they came out before Man the Box even hit. And I just remember going, this band is unbelievably amazing, and I can't wait to hear all their new stuff. And so I've been a fan since then, and it was probably, 91 or something. I don't know when before that first record came out. So, just this huge influence on me. I love heavy riffs with harmony, beautiful melodies. Yeah. That's why I'm a huge fan of King's X too. I mean, it's a different vibe than Chains, but they have the same thing: heavy riffs with beautiful melodies over top of it. That's always been some of my favorite music.
Yeah, great. And our friend on Instagram also, her screen name is SexArtGirl93. She says she's curious when they're getting KXM bundles. They're going to arrive on the release date. I'm guessing not, but I don't know. And also,
you know what? I just got a couple people texted me today and DM'd me in my inbox from Instagram showing their pictures with the vinyl. So a bunch of people got them today, which is cool.
Oh, great. Well, then that answers that. It's possible. Okay, good. Good. Yep. Now we talk about, again, shifting gears here, Korn Coffee, a guy named Jarvis Blue Eyes, also on Instagram. Who came up with this idea, and how did that all come about?
I'm so proud of us finally doing this. Ever since I got the gig, Korn, the logo is such a brand, and it's so in your face when you see that. It's so identifiable, and to me, it's like the Nike swoosh and all that. You know what I mean? When you see the Korn logo, it's just like, I've always wondered, like, why isn't there like Corn Flakes and Corn Coffee with a K and all this, stuff. And next thing you know, we're at a meeting and we brought it up. We're like, they knew this guy, Jeremy Guersey, who was Tom Cruise's personal barista for over a decade. And he worked with Cameron Diaz and all these giant stars. And you're like, how do you become a personal barista, first in the first place, And so anyway, we partnered up with him and we talked about doing this. And they said, well, let's talk to a professional that knows what he's doing, come up with some blends if they're good enough. And so that's what happened. He come up with the first dark roast, which I think is some of the best coffee on the planet. There's no bitterness. The strength is perfect. You can make it in a French press, a Chemex, anything, and it comes out just great. We're releasing a new blend called Wired very soon. Some people know it's in the bundles. And then hopefully a breakfast blend down the road. So we're just having fun with it. We're selling a lot. We've had some Korn Coffee parties at the shows on the road. So 10 or 15 contest winners on the radio, and just having fun with it. Great.
Javier Valdivia is asking, will you play Coachella in 2020?
Yes. No, I don't know.
we don't know that yet, Javier. Okay.
We don't know yet.
We're going to stay tuned, just like all this other tour stuff. Yeah. A guy named Sean Ryan, who says he's from Omaha, I guess maybe he met you there or something. I'm not sure. But he says, your drumming is not only powerful and unique. How is it that you manage to stay away from such a traditional hi-hat, snare, kick beat as opposed to these musical beats you do with the toms and voicing around the drums? You keep up with the riffs and so on. How is it that is this just something that flows from you?
That means a lot that you heard my playing that deeply, because I try not to. Sometimes it just calls, for a Phil Rudd, just straight ahead kick snare hat, and that's great. He's one of my favorite drummers of all time. But there's a funkiness in it, and as everyone knows, a hip hop kind of beats to Korn's music, and it's you have to. There's clever ways to insert toms and put a bell here and there just to make it a little bit more jazzier and ear candy, to make it a little funky. So I had a really good time on the new record doing that too. Rascal Lennox was really adamant about me coming up with some clever grooves, and it's I had a lot of fun with that. Even the new KXM, I do a lot of really intricate beats, and there's no producers on that record, so it's 100% me on that record, the last 3 records actually with KXM, because it's pretty cool when someone and I love Nick, he gives me great suggestions, but it's really cool when there's no one telling you what to do and it's 100% you. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And you already answered. Victoria Boston asked your favorite album. The Nothing is your favorite album so far, right?
I think so, man. It's like, I'm really proud of Serenity of Suffering. I think there's some really great stuff on there, and there's just something about the entire package of The Nothing. Like I said, from start to finish, there's nothing I want to fast forward or there's always those tracks on records and some of my favorite bands. I'm like, this one they could have probably done without, and that's just my opinion. But that's what's great about music. If it all sounded the same, it would be boring. So that's why everyone's got their opinions. But to me personally, I love it from start to finish. I can't stop it once it starts. It's really weird.
Yeah. And one thing that personally I've always wondered, is Ray LUZIER and even Jonathan, are we ever going to have nicknames like Head, Monkey, Fieldy? What are we going to call Ray?
Yeah, I'll be Gimpy. No.
Well, if you want.
No, I'm not sure. I think Ray's going to be, that's just going to be me.
Somebody on here called you Drum Killer, so maybe we'll throw that in. But
well, I kill drums, but I'm not a killer.
You're killing a lot of trees, breaking all these sticks. And so we need to do some sort of benefit there. So, on that, I know that you got to go here pretty quick. And we could talk for hours and we'll get together again here. But anything else you want to say to the fans or regarding the album or, on any topic here? These fans are just great, dedicated folks.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd like to, first of all, huge thanks to all the fans that supported me, and I know it's, especially with the Korn fans, I know it's a lot to accept a new guy, and even after 13 years, I'm not the new guy by far anymore. But I understand that it's a big change, and me myself, when I see a band get a new member in it, I want to see the original guys, and I get it, but. If it wasn't me, it would be someone else. This band would live on. The original guy lost his heart in the band and didn't want to do it anymore. So I'm fortunate enough that I got the gig and that the fans took me on and believed in me. It took some of them a long time, and that's fine. It's I get it. But so that's a big thank you to you guys. Thanks for everyone supporting The Nothing and Circle of Dolls, KXM. If you haven't heard KXM yet, give it a try. It's a totally different ball game, but. George Lynch and Doug Pinnick are massive legends in this business, and I'm just so grateful to be in a band with them and call them my brothers now. It's weird when you listen to someone, you look up to them as musicians, and then you meet them and you're like, wow, we could actually put a band together and put music out and keep making music. And we're threatening to put a couple dates together for KXM, hopefully by the end of the year. So to all the KXM fans that are like, when are you going to tour? This is the 3rd record with not one live show. We're actually talking about it now. So definitely stay tuned on the KXM official Instagram. Absolutely. And my Instagram page too, which is Ray LUZIER Korn.
Yeah. And so again, Circle of Dolls from KXM and The Nothing from Korn, both coming out this Friday the 13th. My goodness gracious. This is so exciting. And Ray LUZIER, couldn't thank you enough for your time and answers. And sorry for any of the questions we didn't get to. We'll get to some of those next time, perhaps. I'll keep note. But thank you, as always, and to our audience, power yourself, empower the world around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks so much for listening to Empower Humans. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review this podcast. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit empowerhumans.com. We'll catch you next time.